Hear that.
Live, so we're live.
I graduated. I got
This meeting to order at 6 p.m.
quiet, please.
Parker, can you provide information on how to participate in comment?
Thank you, Chair. Information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely by Zoom or telephone, is available on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org, and a few printed copies are in the back by the table. And for all in-person attendees, we do ask you to turn off any devices or to mute them in the meantime to avoid any distractions. But also for in-person attendees, if you do choose to speak, please speak clearly into the microphones. We do have a microphone at this podium for the members of the public. Please press the button to make sure that the green button is on. It just says push. You just need to push it one time, and then you will be able to be heard. For anyone else that has the pods, these are for our online speakers, and you do not need to touch them. In fact, please do not touch them. That'd be the best. But the microphone itself, please go ahead and touch. And thank you all for participating in your local city government.
Okay, can we get roll call?
Yes. Alpharetta Oaks. Alta Mesa.
Here.
Thank you. Casanova Oak Knoll.
Here.
Deer Flats. Del Monte Beach.
Here.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande. Here. Downtown. Here. Fisherman Flats. Here. Glenwood.
Here.
Monterey Vista.
Here.
Thank you. New Monterey.
Here.
Oak Grove. One line.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Luz.
Thank you.
Luz, because you did not provide your address beforehand, I do need to ask you for just cause for attending remotely. So you can hear us now. Have you been able to hear the proceedings until now?
Say that again, please.
Were you able to hear so far this meeting?
Yes, right now I hear you and you hear me, so we are
Yes.
okay.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for the meeting?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And then could you please provide a brief description of the just cause for your need to appear remotely? So what is the reason for attending remotely?
Family issues. I'm with my
Okay.
family.
Thank you. And is anyone over the age of 18 with you in the room?
I'm alone in my room.
Thank you. And then just to confirm with everyone else, can we all hear NCIP committee member Luz Adams? Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Luz. And then moving forward with the rest of roll call, Old Town.
Here.
Thank you. Skyline.
Good evening.
And Villa Del Monte. Okay, we have quorum.
Great. So moving on to general public comments, I did want to take a moment and recognize the city attorney's office present in this meeting, who may be able to answer any questions from public comments as it relates to any legal questions. So for now, I'll call for public comments on matters not on the agenda and within the jurisdiction of the NCIP. If you're interested in making a comment, if you can stand up. Great. Any other comments? Okay, so we have 3 people here and online.
We have one online.
Okay.
Hand raised.
All right, so we'll do 3 minutes. You want to go ahead and come up and read? Here.
Good evening, members of the NCIP committee. My name is Uwe, and I'd like to speak about the email I sent you earlier today, which you probably haven't received yet, but Reggie promised me he would do it tomorrow or earlier.
Get your mic on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Push the button. Sent here earlier this morning, it talks in more detail about how NCIP started 40 years ago with ordinances and regulations, which we still have in place today, and I don't think have been updated. So after more than 40 years, it's time for NCIP or NIP, as it was called originally, to review and update its ordinances and regulations. When the program was first created, it focused strictly on capital improvements, sidewalks, streetlights, parks, and playgrounds. Those were important foundations at that time. Our community needs have evolved, and so should the NCIP. I'm suggesting one simple but meaningful addition. Let's include the word services alongside capital improvements. Why is that important? Because services open the door to an entirely new set of opportunities for our neighborhood associations, for you as NCIP representatives, and for the city itself. Think about what services could mean. Non-capital initiatives that directly improve quality of life. Neighborhood patrols, code compliance assistance, little controls, safety awareness programs, and traffic monitoring, or even neighborhood engagement services. These are not bricks and mortar projects. They strengthen the very fabric of our community. If the NCIP framework recognizes services, our neighborhood register as a nonprofit, making them eligible for local fundraising and grant opportunities. Imagine what that could mean, leveraging outside funds, creating partnerships and lightening the financial load on the city. A good example, neighborhoods could contract for private patrols or code oversight services. These efforts could assist the city's police and code enforcement team at a fraction of current costs, keeping our neighborhoods cleaner, safer, and better managed. And the best part, you, the NCIP and the neighborhood representatives, have more direct control and insight over how those services are provided. So before we return the $6.5 million to our unused funds, to the general fund, I urge you to pause and think, what if a small change in NCIP ordinances could unlock and greater community impact? Let's modernize the program, folks. It's time after 40 years. Thank you.
Okay, next person.
Evening. You've been given your orders. They're on your agenda tonight. You're to go through projects from past years and try to come up with $3 to $4 million worth of projects to cut. The mayor's alluded to his desire to actually take even more than that, including $6 million from the current fiscal year, which you haven't yet allocated, to come up with a full $10 million. I think that just sort of shows the hand that to me signifies that they find that is a more or less easy way to solve the difficult situation that they're in. And the way the city charter reads, it says that the NIP dollars can be used for the ordinary and necessary services of the city. So in order for the NIP dollars to be spent, it has to be for necessary services. So there's a lot of latitude to how you define that word necessary. But as of now, I've not heard the council have any serious deliberations about what is necessary. What should the general fund be funding? What should the general fund be jettisoning? Now, at the end of the meeting, there needs to be more work done in that realm, and I applaud him for doing that. I may not agree with what he has in mind for making that work, but I think that's a good thing. So it's a high hurdle. Nobody, the council shouldn't think of the NIP dollars as being kind of the easy button to just, we're in a tough situation. That's the drug to take for my financial headache. It's not really. They should be looking at all other ways of making the budget work. So I ask you that, I know you can't do it now, but you can do it at the end of the meeting when you have your individual comments. If you send a clear message to the city council via your individual comments, that you wish that, first of all, they would have given you more latitude to decide how you, the NIP committee, would like to see $3 to $4 million taken out of the NIP budget and not be mandated that it come from currently funded projects. If I were sitting in your chair, I would probably choose to take it out of the current fiscal year or a future fiscal year so that you don't have to go through the exercise you're about ready to torture yourself with tonight. And tonight, you're going to be in vacuo. You're not going to be able to reach out to your neighbors to find out what they think about these projects that you're going to be deliberating about inside the walls of this room. So I don't know what you're really going to accomplish tonight. You're going to go through these things. You're going to look at colorful cards. You're going to rate them 1, 2, 3, or 1 to 10, or whatever it is. And then you're going to leave here, and then somebody's going to button. You can say, why in the hell did you elect to close this project out? So good luck with that. And please make your voices heard at the end of the meeting that you would like to see the council broaden solution base and let you have a say in that. Thank you.
Okay, next person.
Hello, Jean Rash. I just want to thank you for coming out, showing up. And I want to thank you for coming last night. And I want to thank you for coming to the joint meeting with the council and NCIP. And I'm just relieved to see you all still here. Thank you.
And I think it's, oh, all
Yeah,
right. Go ahead. Let me restart.
Rick Hoyer, used to see a lot of you here quite often. I wasn't originally going to speak under public comments, but Tom got me to be thinking of something. I just found for a year, the city council kept beating up the NCIP about all the needs to have to fix all the different facilities in the city, the complete study of everything that has to be done and all the rest. And it really should come from NCIP funds. And then the mayor suggests that we take not just the 4 million, but another 6 million from NCIP to fix a structural deficit. I guess they don't want to fix anything anymore because the only fund that's being used to repair anything is now being asked to provide for a budget deficit that they don't want to sit. Can't say don't, they don't, because there are a couple of council members that do want to look at how are we actually going to fix our structural deficit by cutting costs. It's just awful ironic that for 9 months we've been the villains and now all of a sudden we're the savior for the rest, but I guess it doesn't mean that all that stuff needs to be fixed anymore. It's magically okay.
Esther's online.
Yeah.
any other public comments?
Esther's online.
Yep.
Esther, if you can hear us, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have a hard time understanding how you guys can say that the council has made you guys out to be the villain. Nobody has been making NCIP out to be people who spoke last night say that, yeah, the structure of the committee is in need of adjusting even the percentage of what it gets of TOT, because it doesn't, the whole process needs updating, as does the program. So we can't just keep battling like this when at the end of the day, that money isn't yours, isn't the council's, it's everybody's. And how we could possibly justify putting some of the things ahead of the fiscal health of the city that were mentioned last night by a couple of the council members. How could anybody justify layoffs over some of these projects? How could anybody, think that how we got into this mess was because previous city councils and management didn't put reserves aside? So why would we go back into reserves and take the little bit that we have so that NCIP can fund these programs instead of just postponing them? That defeats the whole purpose of having the reserves. I treat my 401k as something that I have there for an emergency. I'm going to let it grow as much as I can, and I'm going to keep contributing to it. But for going to hurt me in the long run. So I just have a hard time understanding how some council members are saying that we should consider a first responder fee, that because there's a Good Samaritan clause of some kind, that affects every single person here. There are other things that are on the list of potential revenue generators than layoffs and first responder fees. I just find it really just confounding how some of the people that have been speaking out about this continue to make it an us versus them, when basically it's everybody. And if you aren't going to complain about cuts in services and layoffs, then go ahead and do, go ahead and do what they're telling you to do. And then none of you that are for that should complain when it happens, because that's really the health of the whole city. And NCIP is not being asked to do anything
Okay.
other than postpone.
Esther, that's your time.
Yeah, I don't have a timer, so I don't know what my time is.
That's it. Thank you. And that's the end of public comment.
Great, so we'll move on to informational reports.
Oh, sorry, Chair, one thing. Oh, Hans, you can't speak under public comment because since you're a committee member. That's it.
So we're going to move on to informational reports and staff comments. So we'll hand it off to city staff for presentation.
Do you have anything? I don't have any presentations under public appearance. Well, later under informational reports, no.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to NCIP informational reports. And I did have a few things that I wanted to say at the start of this meeting. Goal of improving communication and collaboration with the city and with staff. I feel that the NCIP committee has been receptive to feedback and proactive. Even prior to the discussion of the $10 million deficit, we have worked with staff to identify previously approved projects that were stalled in order to identify barriers and challenges and to reassess whether or not these were projects that could actually be completed. As a result of that, those 25 projects were identified at our February 19th meeting. We assigned responsibilities to the respective NCIP reps to follow up with the submitter and report back. We also received feedback and voted on those recommendations at our April 16th meeting. The end result of this were 3 projects that we were recommended to close out the city council and 2 projects that we ended up combining into 1 project. And so that ended up to be a total of about $448,500 roughly dollars as a result of that action. The next step has always been to do the same process for all of the previously approved projects that we have not yet started. This has been our plan from the beginning before we received any kind of directive from City Council. And we do intend to follow through, but we want to do it in a way that's consistent with the NCIP process of community participation. And what I took away from last night's meeting is that the City Council did provide that number, $3 to $4 million. But the mayor also said that he would accept whatever we can come up with. So I don't feel that we necessarily need to be held exactly to the 3 or 4 million. It could be less, it could be more, depending on our process. We are in mid-October and we haven't even started the process for this year. We will be discussing changes in our schedule, changes in the NCIP schedule to ensure that we do have time to adequately vet, discuss, and hear from public before deciding on recommendations for this cycle. We have, as a committee, previously discussed choosing fewer projects that align with the community needs in supporting infrastructure, public health, and public safety. We are compromising, we are collaborating, we are putting the community first. We haven't really even started the process at all, again, just to emphasize that. So I ask that we be allowed to do the work and to show that we are listening and that we want to be part of the solution and working together with all stakeholders, but we can only do that if we have the opportunity to actually move forward. There will be an opportunity to discuss further item 2 later in this meeting and how to proceed. We will not be having a final vote tonight on recommendations to freeze any projects. So I will be making that motion at that time. I think it is helpful to have a list of the projects and we'll have a presentation from staff. We also have the cards that we can reference so that we are aware of which projects we will be reassessing. And I do look forward to that discussion and hearing from everyone when we get to that agenda item. So that being said, we'll move on to the first public appearance item, adopt revised neighborhood and community improvement program, committee meetings and deadline schedule for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Okay, give me 1 second to pull up the presentation. And to,
Updated my calendar for the ones you put before, so. I don't need them all.
okay, thank you, Chair. And as the Chair said, we're going to move on to item number 2 on this evening's agenda, which is the public appearance. Oh, it's not sharing, sorry. So close. Give me 1 second. Sorry, everyone. To share it. Okay, so we're gonna move on to, yes, the agenda item, which is the calendar. So we had to, as we missed a few, I'm sure as everyone is aware, we missed a few of the meetings. So in order to catch up with the work of the committee, city staff is proposing a revised calendar. And if you have, so tonight, October 22nd was a regular scheduled meeting. We're adding November 5th, or proposing to add November 5th and November 12th as additional meetings, keeping the regular scheduled November 19th and December 10th, adding a December 17th, a January 21st. Those meetings would end out the season with the voting. And then we would maintain our early 2026 calendar unchanged, with going to Planning Commission February 10th, Parks and Rec Commission February 11th, and then City Council ultimately in April 7th. That's kind of what we have planned. There is an opportunity to change these dates. However, it is, I mean, there's only so many Wednesdays left in the calendar. So we understand that some of these dates in December are difficult at best. So if we don't get quorum, so we can accept or vote to move forward with this. If we don't get quorum for a meeting, then we would just cancel it and schedule another meeting at a later date. Because it's hard to say what people's schedules could be. And that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, so we'll open it up for NCIP committee members if there are any questions about the schedule.
More of a comment or question. Because we used to have availability of an extra meeting in case we had, as we went through the neighborhood projects, we had more people or couldn't get through all the projects because of time limits. So how are we going to handle that case again if we start going through the neighborhood projects and we start having a lot of public comment and we have a time limit? What do we do?
You mean by time as in?
Well, are we going to stay here until 1 o'clock in the morning?
My goal is never to be here at 1 in the morning. I think that, I mean, I would make it my effort to present the projects in a way that we could get through them. I mean, if we get to a place where it's clear we're not going to get through the projects, then I think we would look to have an additional meeting. Would be my preference personally, as opposed to, I don't think anything good happens at 12 and 1 a.m. personally.
We're here. Used to.
Any other questions from the committee, Gina?
I'm wondering how this merges with any meetings to look at how we're reducing the current funded programs. I am personally very uncomfortable voting to put money somewhere when we're not dealing with the fact that some of the projects that we've already put money toward are going to be taken away. And I don't totally know what the concept of the council's flexibility is, but I would question whether it's possible to share the load of that $4 million. That's probably right. Rather than say, we're going to take it out of existing projects and then we're going to fund some other projects. There's just something so kind of irrational about that to me that I would appreciate if we would find a way to make it a little bit more even.
So I'm sorry to interrupt because it's kind of going more into comments. So is there a specific question about
Okay.
the schedule?
So how is it happening?
Thank you.
I mean, I think we could, there's different ways. I think we could take on reviewing the old projects. I think we originally had talked about addressing like 10 a week, 10 a session. We can go that route. Or we could front load it and we could review all of them. I mean, it's whatever the committee would like to do. I could be prepared to talk about the projects at any time.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify that, so they would both occur at the same meeting, or are we talking different meetings?
So we could do it as separate agenda items. Yeah, so we could have like agenda item, like as of tonight, you could have one item would be review 10 current projects. And then another one could be review, new nominated projects. Could do that.
Any other questions from the committee?
Will we be defining the criteria? In other words, when we're evaluating these projects, many of them go back many years, as you're aware. Will there be weight given to projects that have been on the list? I mean, they're all valid projects. We thought years ago, 7, 8 years ago. So will we have?
Hi, part of my interruption.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Christine Davy, City Attorney. And this agenda item is just for approving and reviewing the schedule. And so all the other questions are really great questions, but they're later on in the meeting. So it's just really important to stay on topic. Thanks.
Yes, and I just want to add that we do have a presentation and we can talk about the format during the presentation. So if we have to, so we're approving the schedule, we can always add a special meeting. So we can discuss at the next item as well.
Any other questions on the schedule? Okay, so we'll go to public comment. Those who want to make a public comment, if you want to stand. See no one standing. Is there anyone online?
No hands online.
All right, so we'll close public comment and open things up for discussion with NCIP members. Any comments?
Can I make another comment?
About the schedule, yes.
So yeah, this is about the schedule and not the process with the schedule, just the schedule, just the days. I would think we would need a greatly expanded schedule to accomplish some of what I would see as the goals of that process.
So the schedule is for the current process. So we're not really talking about the other agenda item yet. So that will be kind of the next one. I think that's what your question is.
No, because my question about the first item is my vote for the first item will depend upon other things besides whether we approve of these 5 days for a meeting. Because in my estimation, in my mind, it would take more than these 5 days to get done what I'm assuming we need to get done. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Are there any other comments?
Mary, since there seems to be quite a few concerns about how item 2 will affect item 1, is it possible that, or maybe it's staff I need to ask, is it possible to trail this until after item 1 and then pick this up after, until we discuss items? Can we trail item 1 until after we talk about item 2? Might answer some of the questions that the committee members have about how they'll vote on item 1. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, that would work. So I think we can present, the other thing we can do too, similar to what we did with council, is to give cards and information ahead of time and work with the different reps so that we can try to minimize. I know everybody's super busy. We don't want to add a ton of meetings, but I understand that you want to have time to go through the process.
So we would need to make a motion, correct?
I mean, let me just add one piece. I think the most important part of this agenda item is that we have a November 5th meeting. So everything else is open for discussion, but if we don't vote on a November 5th meeting tonight, then November 5th would be a special meeting at best and may not happen. So, I mean.
Can I offer that this is pretty much dates that staff has identified that there is availability to actually have a meeting. If we need extra meetings, it doesn't mean that that can't happen because we approved the schedule. So I think it's a good place to start. It doesn't mean that that's final. Dennis, you have a comment?
I move that we accept the schedule as provided.
A second.
We take the vote.
So roll call for the motion to accept the agenda. Alta Mesa,
Finish the discussion, so.
They didn't finish the discussion.
okay, they can have discussions about the motion. So if there's discussions about the motion, there can be discussions, but
I have discussion on the motion.
So just to clarify, you're saying we can vote on this as it is, and then make modifications later after we discuss item 2 and, okay.
So I would consider this the minimum number of meetings.
Okay,
Any other discussion on the motion?
I just have one thing to say. I'm sorry. I cannot make it. I can't make it on November 5th. I know that right now. But I'm still will vote for it. Just everybody.
do you have an alternate?
No, Fisherman Platts does not have an alternate.
any other discussion?
Any other discussion?
This is when the restaurant's open. We got to take the schedule. Otherwise, we're not going to get fed.
Anyone else?
Then I'll move forward with roll call then. All right, Alta Mesa.
Aye.
Thank you. Casanova Oaknall. Del Monte Beach.
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande.
Aye.
Downtown.
Aye.
Fisherman Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood.
Aye.
Monterey Vista.
Aye.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Oak Grove.
Aye.
Thank you. Old Town.
Aye.
Skyline.
Yes, please.
And Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, provide recommendation to city council regarding prior year neighborhood and community improvement program projects not yet started or inactive to be defunded. Meet the city council directed goal of 3 to 4 million. I'll go ahead and put a motion in to table the vote for a yet to be determined time and just have discussion in this meeting.
Oh,
Second that.
okay. And any discussion on that motion? Okay, we'll move forward with roll call. Alta Mesa.
Aye.
Casanova Oaknall.
Aye.
Del Monte Beach.
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande.
Aye.
Downtown.
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood.
Aye.
Monterey Vista.
Aye.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Oak Grove.
Aye.
Thank you. Old Town.
Aye.
Skyline.
Yes, please.
And Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll hand it off to staff to do a presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So I want to, I heard some questions earlier, so I just want to clarify that this list is only the projects that haven't started or that we wanted to discuss, as you mentioned, these consolidation. And they're not in order of priority. They're not in any order, we're just discussing these.
Okay, well, the order, just for, there is an order, it's based on year that it was approved, but not priority. Yeah, it does have an order, number order, not priority. So as everyone the last couple of weeks and months, in the last 3 years, there's been 105 projects approved and funded by City Council. This is the breakdown here. We're up to 41 projects now. I think the number had been 40, but every day we are working. We are getting stuff done. So we're up to 41 out of that 105. So the projects that are in the agenda were identified as those not started and or inactive and column in the agenda. I'll do my best to keep on those numbers, so 1 through 40 for those following. Hopefully that makes it pretty straightforward. And I'll just run through them and then I'm gonna ask questions and open it up for public comment, committee comment, and I think that'll, based on the previous vote, that would be the end of this agenda item. Okay, so there are currently 5 inactive projects. As the agenda item says, I think those 5 projects sum up to roughly, it's not in here, it's roughly $400,000, a little more. Swings installation. Larkin Parks, this project is slated to go to City Council for a vote on November 4th, which is the next council meeting. The NCIP committee recommended closing this project out. So the funds that are remaining in this project would then go to the ending balance account. There's Project 8, Casa Verde Highway 1 underpass. Item 9 is the Ryan Ranch Park 8-court pickleball, which we had a discussion on, and staff recommendation to move those funds to the tennis center at NCIP. Project 25, number 25, which is the North Fremont Gap Bike Pedestrian Bike and Pedestrian Path Matching Funds. This is on the inactive account because we do not have a grant at this time for the matching funds, but the project is there and the funds are sitting. And we're going to apply for another grant. Okay, so those are the inactive projects. I'm going to pull up a separate presentation here with a lot more detail. So give me 1 second, please, to give it a little bit more on the other not started projects. Okay, so on the not started projects, we'll start with, give me 1 second. It's not. I apologize for the delay here. Give me 1 second. Okay. That should be it, right? All right, sorry about that. Okay, so these cards are gonna line up exactly with the cards that you have in the packet. So starting with attachment 1, card 1. This, so we're looking at here is Del Monte Beach Boardwalk repair NIP 2302. So just make sure everyone can follow. The 23 is the year. So this was an FY 23 project and it received the second most votes that year. And in the pink box, you'll see that was 117 votes. I believe in this year, the maximum was 130 votes that a project could receive based on 10 for each NCIP member that voted that was present. And so this was repair, replace damaged or missing boards in various beach boardwalks at Del Monte Beach. There have been, over the years, we have 4 beach boardwalk projects of different types. The Parks and Rec department generally goes out and does this work as it comes up. And we do on an ongoing basis repair the boards, and there have been some repairs going on recently. So this would be one where the remaining funds could go back to the ending balance. So I'll keep going. Oh, and I made an addition to these cards because I had some committee members ask. So we'll see that there's a note that says it was defunded in 2020, if it was or was not. There's 40 projects we're discussing tonight. 22 of those 40 were defunded in 2020. And I just for those that math, that they're interested in the numbers, there were 123 projects total that were defunded in 2020. There's 44 of those projects remaining on our projects list. 22 have not been started. 22 have been started. So we're at exactly 50% started and not started. So this one, the Upper Windermere Log Drops Repair Project, was on the list in 2020, was defunded, it's back. See the 104 votes, was ranked. Log drop structures to minimize erosion and sedimentation in the Windermere Creek. And this is the drainage and skyline that then goes into Monterey Vista and actually comes down all the way to Hartnell Creek. Next one is 2308. It's
To interrupt, but it would be helpful to me if, as you're going through these, if you would indicate whether it's not started in progress with the end.
all of these are all not started projects.
Thank you.
So just for clarity, we had a question on what does an inactive project, what's the difference between inactive and, so if you don't mind clarifying.
Oh, absolutely. So inactive, a perfect example would be like the swing, Larkin Park swings or the matching funds. Right? There's no way to move that project forward. So that's why I classified it as inactive. Not started means you haven't gotten to it yet. But the ones on the inactive list were reviewed and, we tried to make an attempt to move them forward and they didn't move for one reason or another. So Larkin Park, space, matching funds for North Fremont, we didn't have anything to match to. And we can talk in more detail about those projects, but it was just a way for me to categorize them in my mind, I guess I would say, more than anything. And the ones that haven't started are literally, we haven't started them.
Ready to start them.
Okay, so 2308 is card number 3. This is the lighted crosswalk at Webster and El Camino, El Estero. The design on this project has been completed and it's actually, this was one that was put in and not started, I would say, in error on my part. It's actually in a package of crosswalks to be done. The next one, 2319, is drainage swale on Divisadero, the 700 block. This was also on a defunded list in 2020. It's to reconstruct the drainage swale along existing roadway edge in New Monterey. 2323 is to make some improvements and repairs to the Forest Rock Holman Highway Bridge in Skyline. This goes off the 68. I'm sure we're all aware of this bridge. The project was also defunded in 2020. It was received 84 votes in 2023. It was ranked number 23. This was one of the inactive projects, public restroom study, prepare a study of existing public restrooms. It was on the list prior to 2020. It was defunded, was brought back, received 82 votes, and was number 24. I had some requests from also committee members about, complexity. We tried to give them high, medium, low. This one, for example, is high. High being, there's different reasons why projects can be difficult. This one is hard to wrangle for various reasons. And again, we can talk about this. This one is, we talked about Larkin Park is set to go to before City Council at the November 4th meeting. Villa Del Monte, Casa Verde Way, Highway 1 underpass. This one's also on that inactive list, funded in 2020, was brought back in 23, received 79 votes and was ranked 26. So now we're on to the first of the 24 projects. This was the Ryan Ranch 8-court pickleball design only for $100,000. The design has not been started. This was a very popular project, however, received 120 votes. This year, I believe in 24, the max team there that year. This was the number 3 ranked project. 2406 is Ferrante Park Playground Improvements, 114 votes. And simply we haven't started this project. Monterey Bay Park Shower, this received 109 votes. We have looked at this one. There's some concerns about the use of the shower. So we've looked at keeping it below the knee, so to speak, for feet and ankles only. But this one also has not been started. 2414, the Del Monte Grove Casanova Avenue 500 block street light. I know that the neighborhood rep has gotten approval from 2 neighbors to place a light in front of their house. So that was achieved recently, but we haven't started it internally.
So Reggie, just so you know, it looks like there's a duplicate explanation for 2411 and 2414 on the cards.
Oh, I'm sorry for that. Yeah, so this one was for, I'm sorry. It was for a street light on the 500 block of Casanova Avenue. Yeah, not to install a shower. It's a cut and paste error, sorry. 2421 is the Alta Mesa Don Davi Creek Path construction. So this was separate from design. This is the actual construction of the project. We've actually completed the design, and we haven't started construction yet. 2423 is Old Town Neighborhood signs. This was to install signs within the neighborhood. And we haven't started it, but this would be one, just complexity is like finding a location. It turns out these signs are actually more difficult than we think. Windermere Lower Canyon drainage, this one, again, this was on the other side of Skyline. So upper is up the hill and lower is down the hill. And there's no log drops on the lower side, would be the main difference. 2434 is Beachway Boardwalk extension. So this is to take boardwalk down from where it currently is, closer down on the beach. We also have looked at this one. Parks Department has reported back that they would rather not do this one just because the waves, when they crash in the winter, it comes up and I guess there was a boardwalk section here before and it broke. But that's just some feedback. And that's why this one has got high complexity. Boardwalk replacement, again, we've spoken on these. This was one of those that was defunded and brought back. The Sloat Monument Restoration Project was on the books in 2020. It was brought back in 24, received 63 votes and was ranked number 40. The Shoreline Park Fish Hopper Restoration Project. This was on the books in 2020. Yes, and it was, I think this one got messed up too. It shouldn't have received, did not receive 142 votes. We could look that up.
Number 2.
It was number 4. Yeah, I think it was holdover from the next one. Undergrounding did receive 142 votes, and that was number 2. So this one is a big ticket item, 2.2 million, 2.25 million. Again, this has high complexity. There were multiple projects on the books in 2020 for different forms of undergrounding, conduit installation. So, and that's what that is there to represent. So we're into 25 projects now. 2503 is Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande Park Elder Focus Exercise Equipment. This received 141 votes. And we've had some meetings and discussions, but we haven't started in earnest on this. Casa Nova Oak Knoll, Ramona Avenue sidewalk infill. So there are 4 sidewalk infill projects in Casa Nova Oak Knoll. They're all pretty tight together, and the idea would be to do these as one package for construction. So this is one of those. Another one, 801 Casanova Avenue on the corner with Melway Circle. We have native plant dune ecosystem restoration in Del Monte Beach. We have NCP 2513, which was the matching funds on North Fremont, spoke about earlier.
Sorry, I just want to add that we have a new opportunity of this grant that's due in March of next year to apply in conjunction with the site.
Okay. 2514 is 57 Melway Circle. Sorry for online. I accidentally hit the button there. So to repeat, this one is 2520, card 27. This was on the books in 2020, defunded, brought back. And this one is a complex project because of the historic nature of the structures. San Burnaby Road. This is card number 28. And again, this is one of the projects that were split. The design has been completed, but this is for construction. Crosswalk at David Avenue and Terry Street. This was on the books in 2020, defunded and brought back. Villa Del Monte traffic calming. There's 2 projects. This one was on the books in 2020, defunded and brought back. Del Monte Beach parking lot bike rack. And we haven't started this one. Beach boardwalk lighting in Del Monte Beach also has not been started. 600 block of Lobo Street drain line improvements project, very similar to the Visadero project. The other Villa Del Monte traffic calming project was also on the books in 2020, defunded and brought back. Lower Presidio Walkway Phase 2 was on the books in 2020, defunded and brought back. We have the pickleball, install pickleball courts at the Monterey Tennis Center. Then we have the Opportunity Property Purchase Project. So this is funds that were set aside when funding was available, and it's $250,000. Then I'm sure we all remember the Recreation Trail Repair Station projects was one of these we just recommended the council. And that would be in that window on the Bay Area, which hasn't been started yet. And then we have the contingency fund, which is currently at $69,500. And the last one is the ending balance or unappropriated funds account or project. It's not really an account, it's a project at $632,267. And that's the end of staff's presentation.
So we'll open it up for committee questions.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When these were defunded in 2020 and then obviously they're funded again, what are the likelihood of these being funded again and how long will that take and what's for that?
So when they were defunded in 2020, what happened is the projects were eliminated from the book. So they were closed, they're defunded. So when we brought the item to council, the idea was to freeze them so they're approved, they're not wiped out. So the whole process of voting for that project, that stays safeguarded. So the likelihood of defunding, I think the question is, I'm going to go back to NCIP committee wanting to discuss some of these older projects that have been in the books and what the challenges are to see, do we continue with these or not? So I think once we do identify these projects, and let's say that we go ahead and freeze one of these projects, then it can be up to NCIP on what the priorities are. So whether they get funded in the next 2 years or the next 3 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Two questions regarding Del Monte Beach. One, we've just learned that we're short, I believe, on the Del Monte Casa Verde rec trail crossing project. And so that would be something that would be looking at contingency and fund balance.
So I believe we're using Measure X for the shortage. So we're not going to NCIP to ask for money.
Question is,
Song for her every
for those that are new in particular, we put a little pot of money aside for fixing out the walkways on the Del Monte Beach every year. And we at some point came back and said, maybe it's more efficient to just do all their fixing at once instead of all this patching. And the way it works is Parks just pulls money out of the checkbook and buys the wood and puts it in. There's no sophisticated analysis on their side. So I talked with Parks, asked them what's better for us, but they don't have that. So I'm wondering, can we get a recommendation from engineering about what's better, keep patching or replace all? That's why there's different projects.
We can look into it. And I mean, I think that they've been doing a pretty good job of patching, and related and unrelated, a bonus maybe as a part of the government shutdown, federal government shutdown, that a lot of the crafts workers a number of crafts workers that have this appropriate skills have been at Del Monte Beach doing boardwalk repairs and cable repairs. So I think we should take a look at it and see the condition and where we are. But yeah, we can give that.
I believe there are 4 total projects.
Yeah, I think so.
I do have a question. You said the 3 infill projects in Casanova, Oak Knoll, idea is to do them all together. That would total $36,688. So why are they listed separately if the plan is, so if we get rid of one, then the remaining 2, I'm kind of confused. If we're gonna do them all as one, why aren't they just kind of one project?
Right, so they were recommended separately. When they came to the committee, they were nominated separately, individually. And the committee voted on them separately and individually. That being said, wherever I can, I always bundle projects. Like we have 2 basketball court projects. One is in Villa Paraiso, one is in Veterans Park. So when you have projects that are similar or they're in, close proximity, it's just better to do them, when you're in the field, to do them at the same time.
I would imagine because some of the projects, some of the infill is not very big. Most of them are not very big.
Yes.
I think actually all 3 of them are not very big. So is the idea behind that because it's more economical just to have the crew out there and try to get it all done in 1 or 2 days?
Yes.
Other than 1 or 2 days here, 1 or 2 days here, 1 or 2 days here. So that's the idea. So if we're looking at these later to fund or freeze, would we be looking at them individually? And how would that affect if we decide to freeze one, but do the other 2? I mean.
Right. I mean, that would be the consideration for the committee. That's how they were voted on individually originally. So, yes, I would think that the committee would need to vote on each one individually.
Okay, so there's no option to bundle them as one project? Since it's more cost effective to do all 3 as opposed to.
We would have to get buy-in. The way it's worked, we'd have to get consent or approval from each of the proponents to do that.
I've heard from each of the proponents, but I could go back and ask
So if
the bundling.
we could do that.
Okay,
Yes.
it is possible. All right.
On a similar note, but not exact, so the San Burnaby project was approved in part, and it got mixed up in the whole defunding process. So actually, one part of the San Burnaby project is approved and completed and moving on to procurement. And the second part is on this unapproved, why don't we get rid of it list? No, that's what it says in the notes.
So I just want to clarify, the list is the list of projects that haven't been started. So they're not unapproved. They're just projects, and we had requested that we come up with a list of projects that haven't started yet with any challenges or no challenges. Sometimes it could be the small sidewalks. So they're not unapproved.
Let me change my language then. Why would it be unstarted if in truth the project is planned, designed, and been through CEQA and that's a question, it seems like it shouldn't be on that list.
Projects I understand your point. The projects that are on the list are because, for lack of, we haven't started. So we have completed design. We have not started construction. So it hasn't been started yet. The committee has the ability to identify projects to recommend to council. If the feeling amongst the committee is for one or another, it's just, everybody's going to lobby for their individual projects. So, it's just a tough voting situation.
Be like the outlier just trying to vote for myself. But in reading through all the projects, I didn't see any others like that. So I was just pointing out in the same way that there's a piece of these similar things that might be together. I was pointing out that these are not only similar, but highly related things that might be together.
That's fair, but that is getting into comments. So we do need to make sure that we're just asking questions at the time being.
why is that not started yet?
Because I haven't gotten to it yet. I don't have a good reason.
Is what you're saying. So now I'll wait for my comment, but it might be helpful if we had those kind of notes on it. We understood.
I'm gonna ask this and then probably want to run for cover. On the underground utilities, is that entire 2.2 million needed to qualify for the Rule 20A funding?
Great question. So the new PG&E estimate, and I actually pulled the email right here. So the new PG&E estimate is about $10 million. We have about 4.745 in credits from PG&E. And the PG&E credits are not money in the bank. They're kind of like vouchers, Michael's coupons, go and get your coupon. So right now we have $214,000 in the current CIP project. And then we had the sort of a reserve for the Rule 20A credit. However, this is something that's not likely to happen in the next 5 years because of PG&E and how long they take. There are a lot of cities that are ahead of us. However, those cities are not ready to go. Then we could move up on the list a little bit, but I would say it's at least 5 years out. But we do check in with PG&E every 6 months.
Million to stay in compliance with Rule 20A?
That's a great question. So we don't need to prove to PG&E that we have the money. However, in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, when they say we're ready, we need to say we're ready, we have the money.
Thanks.
So I have a question. So you mentioned that the design was completed and it's also part of a package of crosswalks. Is the David Ave Cherry crosswalk part of that package as well?
Unfortunately, no. It's the Webster and El Camino is specifically downtown crossings.
And then I guess along the lines of that question and maybe getting to Gina's question, are there any projects that have not yet been started that could potentially be bundled with projects that are kind of ongoing now?
In this grouping, nothing obvious. We don't have anything obvious in this grouping. And the reason is because the ones that we could start, we have started, or we have something going on there. We do our best to move the projects forward. So nothing obvious, I would say.
Okay. Would it be worth it to look into that question?
I could, yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Do you have any questions?
In the next draft, can we get cross notes like these are related or on the cards? So
I can, yes.
I know it's more work for you, but it'll help us figure out what we should be looking at. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So concerning my neighborhood via Domani, the study was done over 20 years ago, I believe. And we have several projects that are associated, or at least two. However, traffic patterns and things have really changed in 20 years in that neighborhood, I believe. The study doesn't seem to include like Montecito area, which is, I think, probably, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've lived a lot of places. So, at what point do you say, well, the information we have is no longer adequate? Like, why would you spend money on doing curb cutouts and stuff if they may no longer be effective or appropriate?
That's a great question. There's always the opportunity to apply for another NCIP project to redo we do this study, I have to tell you that in the past few years, there hasn't been a lot of change. So what we found is that some of the most effective things to slow down traffic are the combinations of medians and bulb outs because they just restrict the route. So I say that medians and bulb outs are still relevant. I don't see anything that would have changed that much, except if maybe MTS had opened the gate, their back gate. But they haven't. So we can talk about it offline a little bit if you want to talk about whether those are still relevant. We have a little bit of flexibility in our traffic calming policy. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so we can open it up for. See 1, 2, anyone else? 3, 4. Okay, so we have 4 here. Any online?
Oh, I'm sorry, any online? We have, I see 2 hands raised.
Yeah, 2 online, yes.
We do 3 minutes. So you can have these come up. You want to make a comment?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm Rick Hoyer. Better. I'm Rick Hoyer. A few different things regarding this. I think the fact that a lot of these projects that you're looking at were already gone through this process once before, and we've known the pain of what's been involved with that before. To me, there's really 3 ways you could accomplish. The goal of the council was to get $3 to $4 million. They suggested a very specific approach of freezing projects, which I really don't know how that works because you got a process to allocate money in the future and effect it be like it was in 20. That's one approach. Another approach would be $3 to $4 million out of current cycle, which you haven't even started yet. You're not defunding anything. You're not having to go through a nightmare of talking related to it. And it seems like a little oxymoronic to start new projects when you're saying not going to do ones you've already gone through the process. A third option is you take it out of the subsequent fiscal year's budget. My recommendation to you would be you specifically ask the council for permission to do one of those other things. To me, it makes 0 sense to force it out of existing projects. Now, if some of those projects can't be done, by all means defund them, or if they don't make sense, review them for that. But to get to $3 to $4 million, you're going to have a challenge with some of those projects. And if you're going to go that route, you really should make sure that every applicant is notified, has an opportunity to come in and speak to it. In effect, going through the entire process all over again, which was already done once, which to me makes no sense to then do a whole new batch of projects for, to get to the same goal of $3 to $4 million. So that would be my recommendation to you, is to formally ask the council to do it. There seemed to be flexibility that some of the council members were saying as it related to that, but the formal motion that they had done was the one thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I 100% agree with his comments on that in terms of the process. I've been here long enough in the town to consider myself an old timer. So I came here in 1988, which was just after the aquarium opened. And I think we need to keep in mind too, what the raison d'etre is of the NCIP. The program was started as a way to mitigate the impacts of the tourism industry. So it was kind of a deal made with the devil. There were people who were very concerned about the congestion, all the tourism impacts. So they said, okay, here's a bond. You can have an NIP committee and you, the citizens, can guide where that money is spent to help your quality of life. So I don't think we should lose sight of that. I think newer comers to the town might think, well, this is the way it's always been. It's always been a hustle bustle city. And this is all just a bunch of old timers talking about impacts. Well, the impacts are still here. And as a matter of fact, with RENA and all this talk housing, the impacts are going to get a lot worse potentially. I mean, I'll check out by then probably, but you younger people will still be here having to deal with those impacts. First, I also want to thank you very much for changing the process. I think it's inappropriate to vote tonight, so thank you for not doing that. So your criteria for whether or not to freeze a project, I see it as being a very heart-wrenching decision matrix. I would quality of life issues like undergrounding might be one of those. You have other projects that are, as a civil engineer, near and dear to my heart, like the stream bed restoration project, which both have an environmental component as well as a safety benefit of the neighborhood component. So I'm not sure how you're going to weigh those two together. And a lot of those are very expensive projects. So as Rick said, you may not be able to get up to that $4 or $3 million without really turning yourself into pretzels and making some tough decisions. So you might want to actually take money out of either this year or next year's budget. And then for that matter, you might just want to say, just like Rick said also, just look at the deadwood projects and eliminate those ones and then move on taking money out of the future budget. Process of thawing. This, to me, I've had it explained to me, and I consider the explanation a little bit insulting. It says, it goes something like that. $2,000. And he says, or I give it to him. And he says, hey, thanks, Tom. Next time you get $2,000, spend it on what you want to. It's like, oh, well, gee, buddy, thanks. Like, you have to give me permission to spend my money on what I want to spend it on. Well, that's basically what you're being asked to do. You can spend your future money on what you want to, and it might be to unfreeze these, or you can spend it on something else. Well, that's not what I would call a gift. Thank you.
From Monterey Fiscal. For so long, I've been talking about how deceptive it's been to tell people to put in projects and then turn around and have to go back and say, sorry, the city has taken that away from us. And I was glad to hear Shaneri, am I saying it? Shaneri say that there's some flexibility here. And I think you really need to go, as Rick says, to another way of doing it with taking the funds this year, because you don't want to go back to those people and tell them that everything they read, everything you as representatives told them was not true, that they put it in for nothing, and that all the work you guys did was for nothing. It still bothers me that the list is terribly long. And in some ways, we're still deceiving the people because you told them that it would be funded and it would get done. Well, some of them are 10 years on the list, but that's better, at least, we hope they're still going to get done, than having them put on the list and pulled back by city council for reasons that I'm not quite sure how we even got here. So anyway, I'm hoping that it's more of an idea, like Rick said, to have the city council accept your $3,000 or $4,000 from this year or next year. And maybe that's something that Chrissy could speak up to for us tonight and tell us, can NCIP suggest to council that the 3 or 4 million come from the next cycle? Does it have to come from this cycle? But either way, anything's better than pulling projects that have already.
If it's 3,000, I'll pay it.
Gary Christensen from the Casanova Oakville neighborhood, speaking about the 3 infill projects. For those that aren't familiar with the Ramona Avenue, it can be a very busy street at times of the day. We inquire why there was never a connecting sidewalk between Edinburgh and Stewart. We witnessed many times when tires would screech, come to sudden stops as children coming down from the park after getting out of school and the bus were walking on the side where there was no sidewalk, tried to dart out in the street, and a car would have to stop suddenly. We have a lot of avid dog walkers, people with strollers, joggers, seniors who are forced to walk in the street because we're not ADA compliant. It has become more dangerous over the years, as was spoken earlier, with the impacts of getting more and more. On that side of the airport, we have an industrial component where cars try to race up the street to get to work on time. And we also have cars on Fremont during rush hour that try to cut through our neighborhoods, either to get to the apartments on Casanova or just to try to beat the traffic. The NIP program, you know, as we saw a little kid one time almost get hit by a car, we reached out to the program there. We feel like, I'm not sure how your criteria works, but public safety should be number one. And it seemed like a reasonable request that wouldn't take a lot of time and resource to make happen. In the past, the city has asked for both employee groups that work for the city and the neighborhoods to step up and help when they need financial help with the budget. It was our way of giving back as part of our partnership with the city. Our NIP projects was approved, and we were hoping that a safety issue could be solved for the residents of our neighborhood and become ADA compliant. But when we learned our project, as was just talked about, could be on the chopping block, and we thought, you know, for as much as it would cost to for safety, to make our neighborhood a better place, we didn't feel that was really an unreasonable request. So, and also good insurance for the city. You know, rather than have a lawsuit because there's not you're not ADA compliant, or because there's not a sidewalk in a neighborhood, why not do something that would be affordable? So we're asking for your help. We see this project as a public safety issue, not ADA compliant, and we think if you were in the neighborhood, you too would want the same thing for your neighborhood. Thank you.
So we'll go to Esther first. Esther,
Hello
you should be
again.
there you go.
I wanted to bring up a point. Some projects we have to maybe consider alternative funding, like similar to what was just mentioned. You know, we have a project in the works that I'm going to Montage and the Community Foundation to, you know, to see if they would give us grant money for these things. There are options like that some of these projects can, if somebody really believes in a project and they really want it to happen regardless of how this all works itself out, I would suggest that we start to think of a different model for certain types of projects so that we can relieve the pressure from NCIP. I mean, a public safety issue, we not necessarily, but we're back to kind of what was said last night. Some things are nice to have, some things you need to have. The nice to haves are what I'm suggesting people start really finding more creative ways of funding them instead of coming here and beating up at, you know, on NCIP and the council and whatnot. So, and I also, you know, want to reiterate, you guys talk about the painful process of having gone through this. Yes, it's been time consuming. Yes, it's not been easy, but how much more painful is what is going to come if this doesn't get resolved and the city goes into the further deficit, reduces the reserves, ends up with layoffs. That's what's going to be really painful, not postponing some of these projects. So everybody's invested a lot of time and energy, but what's going to be painful is what's going to come if we don't prioritize some of the things that the council is asking for. Thank you.
Excuse me, is public hearing still available?
That's Gary.
Hello,
No, he did not have his hand up.
is public
Sorry, Gary. We had asked for public comment earlier and we did not see your hand. So we are moving on with the next person that had their hand up, Richard Rusello. You should be able to speak if you can unmute yourself.
Yes, Gary did tell me he did raise his hand. Richard Rosello, president of the Casanova Oakdale Neighborhood Association. Sorry, my voice is kind of rough. The infill projects on the sidewalks were put up by a handicapped person. They're ADA public safety. I don't even know why they're on this defund list. This is something that needs to be built right away. People are forced to go from the sidewalk into the street, around cars, and back to the sidewalk. You can't do that if you're in a wheelchair. So this should be a very high priority project, something that shouldn't take years to construct. I agree completely with the previous speakers that it makes more sense to take the 4 million out of your for all this work that's been done. Yes, get rid of the projects that aren't buildable or not practical, but the rest leave alone. If you pass 30 projects this year, next year's NCIP is going to be forced to defund those projects. It's a vicious circle. I have a last question. When the Public Works Director discussed something about the GAP project and March, that voice did not come over Zoom. Could you please repeat what you said into the microphone? Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. So to answer the question, we have a regional surface transportation program grant that is coming. I believe the deadline is in March of next year. And we are looking to partner with Seaside to see if they're interested in a joint application for the GAP project. And everybody hear us okay from online?
To be able to speak.
Can you see if who's can hear us?
Yes, I heard you fine.
And open it up for committee discussion. And I do want to just make sure that everyone on the committee has an opportunity to speak before we do anything.
I'd like to hear from the city attorney whether we can or can't take funds from this year or next year's in order to meet the 4 million. Can we do that, and what's the process?
Challenging times.
Yes.
So technically speaking, it's the city council that does the funding of the projects, and the role of the committee here is to recommend projects. As you know, the city council has asked you to identify those that you're willing to prioritize as not as urgent as some others. And unlike during the COVID defunding, these will not be disappeared or eliminated. They're just going to be put on pause. So it's a little bit different. And so, but I do think the council is looking for your ideas and your suggestions. And as you heard the mayor probably at the end of the last meeting,
that's right,
some flexibility here. I think the risk would be, you could say maybe your first choice is to have the money taken from the future years. That would be your recommendation as your first choice, if that's the desire of the committee. And then your second choice would be maybe the defunding of certain projects. I think the risk, though, is if you don't identify certain projects and if they decide they do want to go with the prior year, if you don't discuss that, they won't have your input. And so I think what the city council really wants to do is not override your hard work that you've already done and disregard it entirely and just take the money. They want to know as hard as it is to sort of identify some of these that can be put on pause for a little while until we're in a more fiscally solvent time. Is that a roundabout answer? I think there's flexibility here, but I do think the council gave clear direction to try to identify projects that are already on the books that are inactive or not feasible for whatever reason. I think probably in part because that might be less painful. It's painful, but it might be less painful than the ones that are underway, and we don't want to stop those mid construction. So my recommendation would be to continue to follow the council's ask and go through and identify some that you could recommend for defunding. And maybe there's not as many or not enough. And I think it's within your be lawful to say we'd prefer you take it from say that. There's just no guarantee on what would happen with that, but it wouldn't be unlawful for you to do that. And I think you could voice that as your first choice, second choice. Anyway, does that answer the question?
Okay. Thank you.
So I have heard from every one of my project submitters. In fact, you have too, except for Gary, who was late, but they've all submitted letters as well. Our projects in Casanova project, which we've already discussed regarding the matching funds. Our infill projects they're very small cost. One of them is only $1,000. And I was not made aware that bundling the projects could actually reduce the total cost of the individual projects. And it's been made clear to me that the sidewalks are needed the infill projects are needed in our community. I walk our neighborhood all the time and I have to go in the middle of the street, certain parts. I do use a stroller to walk my cat. But I do have to go into the street. We do have some unique traffic concerns in our neighborhood with North Fremont, the fairgrounds, the Navy facility, and the industrial airport buildings. There are speeders in our neighborhood all the time. My husband's almost been hit. My alternate's almost been hit. And it is kind of hard to, you're walking on a sidewalk and all of a sudden you have to go in the street and there's not always the roll down curbs. You actually have to step down to go in the street. The one along Ramona, there is no curb from the point where it ends to the side, to the corner where there is a crosswalk. You literally have to either cross where there is no crosswalk to get to a sidewalk, or you have to walk in the street all the way up to the corner. And it's kind of a weird turn as well and downhill slope. So I am it's my job to advocate for my neighbors. My neighbors have made it very clear this is something they want to see. And with the small cost, I don't think the Casanova Oakville project should be cut or defunded. And I would be curious to see the price comparison of bundling the 3 infill projects as opposed to the separate pricing for each project, if in fact it is cheaper as a bundle.
Any other comments?
First,
Gina first and then.
I no need to rush. You want me to go? Oh, okay. To follow that kind of thinking, Monterey Vista projects have over the last year really looked at whether they're viable or not, and we actually retired a few. So we put energy into, as everyone did, I think, in this group, to make sure that we kind of cleared out some projects that really weren't going to go anywhere. The couple that are remaining are either questionably in support from neighbors, which we're not pushing right here, but also there are 2 that are very much related to safety in streets, one of which is not in the unstarted list, and it's along Munris connected to San Bernardino in an interesting way. It's kind of cross-Pacific, but it's very dangerous. And San Bernardino Road is very dangerous as well. There's no sidewalk. There's a deteriorated DG patch. There are racing cars up and down the hill and around the corners. And we actually have some children in our neighborhood now, which is really nice. And dog walkers and bike riders. Kids now are riding these really fast bikes. They're motorized, I think. So it's just really dangerous. And it seems to me that those kind of projects are fully in support, in the spirit of what the NCIP is supposed to do. We're supposed to take money from this thing about visitors and make our lives better. I have talked regularly to people that are involved in this. They're totally in support. I'm sure you know that. And people that don't even live near the thing, they just walk on the street, stop by. So I just think it's really important for us to think about what our relationship is to our people and to our projects and how we are making commitments to them when we ask them to engage with us around this. And it really pains me to think of going through freezing. Freezing's a nice word. It's a prettier word. It's a more friendly word. But it entails the same thing. Somehow, money has to be available to get back into the refunding and back into the activation of the project. It's really substantially not that much different than cutting it. So I personally, when we were at the council meeting, I voted for not funding next year. I think this is a better solution in that we can make the decision really consciously about how all the different bundles can work. But I still really think that it's an important conversation to have. Why stop what started to start something that hasn't started? Just, that's it. That's my comment.
We're going to have Jill go next.
Thank you. I wonder if there could be a criteria set that would prioritize projects that kind of take the political aspects out of it in terms of whether it's your neighborhood and you need to act, advocate. It's, that's our job as a rep. For instance, safety stuff, I believe is number one. And even though I have actually a project I had proposed that is on the list, I realize there's not a safety aspect to it. I realize, if you have to come to priorities, that we should, together as a group, decide what those priorities are so that it's an easier decision. Oh, yeah.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go for it.
Christy, can I have you come back up because I have a couple of questions? Once we start considering these projects that are on the list now that are coming back for reconsideration, do we need to redo the conflicts for voting? And has that study been done?
I think the answer to both questions is yes. Definitely the answer to the first question is yes. But there won't be any voting on this item tonight, as you all have decided. And so the conflicts will be buttoned down before the next meeting. And I've been in conversation prior to this meeting with staff. So yes.
I just was wondering if there's a time delay that we need to account for in that.
Yeah, so the PPC previously said, just because you might see a different process used at a city council meeting or something, but for this board, they allow a presentation to be before the entire group. So you hear all the information and you don't have to do the exiting and entering of the room until there's the actual vote. And that's distinct from what you might see before other boards and commissions, but that's That's the way you get to do it.
Does the limit the speaking to the item or speaking in favor of the item if you're in the conflict? But you can't.
It does. Yeah.
Question number 2. I said there'd be 2.
That's right.
In as much as the undergrounding isn't likely to happen in the next 5 years, is it possible for us to lend that money to the city for a given call date in 5 years?
Yes, I would not want to say yes without consulting with the finance director. I will say it was a common practice in the past. I wasn't necessarily involved with that, where the general fund would borrow money from the parking fund, things like that. I don't know if that's a recommended practice, but I know it's occurred in the past. I'm not sure how that would work here, but I don't think it's
not crazy.
It's not a crazy idea, no.
I'm just thinking these are odd times, so let's think in different ways. So I was like, okay, if we're not likely to need it for 5 years and we have to fix a structural budget problem, maybe the city will be healthier 3 to 5 years from now. Should be. Yep.
Thanks.
I've been pondering this a lot. We've had a lot of conversations and thoughts on it. I think the right move is we've invited people to give us projects for this year. We have those projects in front of us to consider. I don't think we should take it from this year's funds. I think we have a number of city pass-throughs from CIP that are important for our safety: fire, police, trees, ADA, are things that I think that we ought to focus on. Big tickets, doable, shovel ready. So I think we should keep the current cycle active. I think having the schedule that we got to see this evening is an appropriate one for going through what I'm going to call normal course. Get myself to speak right. So that we can do normal course of that. I think it is going to require public testimony, talking to the submitters, doing that kind of work. I believe that's between 2 and 6 meetings. I think we do that in the early part of 2026. And we can't render those decisions until we do that due diligence. That was one of the things that was being asked at last night's council meeting was, how soon do you need an answer? The process is has to be done by April or so that it can pass the budget and have it go in June. But they don't have their information together until February. So we do have that time to make this a better, more proactive, interactive process with the public to review those projects. I think it would be in our best interest ongoing to look at projects to see if there are actually doable. Rather pursue that with time on our side to do it correctly. So my recommendation is that we look at 26, 27 as the set aside that we should consider for NCIP funds to help the city with the problem with the 26, 27 budget. They tend to line up at the same time. Again, we've made promises to people that we're going to look at projects with the current funding cycle. I think we should do that. And I think timeliness in terms of the budget necessaries, I speak English sometimes then, lines up with taking a piece of the 26, 27 NCIP funds to do that. I'd like to have that on a subsequent meeting as a votable item that we might consider. And I have further arguments for why I think this is a good way to go.
I concur with what Dennis is saying. And when we do get down into that part where we start prioritizing things, I think public safety ought to be number 1 and fuel reduction ought to be number 2. Let's take care of the immediate things we can take care of that are doable. With the limited time and money, let's do it right. Thank you.
Great.
First of all, I want to thank city staff again for coming up with the freeze concept because the defunding was incredibly destructive and hurtful to the community. I want to point out that the vote count is a pretty good idea of what the consensus was when the NIP committee at the time had the full amount of information. If everybody thought it was an 8 or a 9 or a 10 out of 10, you're going to see that in the totals. But I also want to point out that the vote count is not enough. Remember, these projects have all just been reevaluated and determined to be important. So there's not a whole bunch of old stinkers hanging out there. Also remember that we have already skipped a year. We would normally have done a voting cycle in April of this year and set the funds up starting July 1, 25 to be done. And we skipped all that. So we already haven't put a whole bunch of more projects in the hopper. Also keep in mind that health and safety and support of the city's CIP needs have always been a priority of this committee. It's nothing new. We talk about it all the time. But most importantly, the decisions that were made by the NCIP committee were made based on public input. I know about the broken teeth and the broken arms related to that path. They were talking about that, and we don't have that information now. It's going to have to be the duty of everybody to get the word out that we got a new thing going on, and they need to bring that input in again. I was voting for us to take it from the subsequent year because I think that in the $300 million budget, if there's a CIP emergency, the city can probably find it someplace else. And also, to be honest, I'd like to see that the money is only taken once, and I'm hoping if they take it from next year and we don't give them this year, that's once. I'm hoping that we don't give them this year and have them take it and then take next year too.
Other comments?
So I agree with Dennis, but in my mind, when I heard the Public Works Director mention that the undergrounding isn't going to happen for 4 to 5 years, and that's like 2.3 million, that's just going to sit there for 4 or 5 years. I'm thinking if we take that and we add to that $1 million from this year or next year, we're done. We're flat out done. We've got what they wanted and we don't need to. That's just my thinking, and we're done with it and on we go.
I don't actually really understand what you were putting out. It's had too many parts to it, and so it seemed like we were going to give money in all 3 years. So could you like parse it out again for those of us? If it's only me, I'm sorry to folks, but I truly didn't understand it.
It's fine. I've seen enough confusion at council that it's actually pretty straightforward. So there's 3 potential pools as I see it, or tranches as they say in the finance industry. One tranche is take away the NCIP funding cycle this year. Take from.
It's coming up.
The one that we asked people to give us projects for. Nope. All the things that are in this book. It's already been a bunch of work done. Citizens are excited. We represent the public, and this is one of the most democratically participative program in the country where people from the ground up can actually get their projects funded without having to go through, well, with a different way of going through that's closer to people. So we've already started that one. So I think that pool ought to be considered out. The other pool that you can go after is the projects that haven't been started or the projects that are in the backlog, because the numbers that Hans was talking about last night were everything that's in process and everything that isn't in process. I think the only thing that we should look at is those that are not in process currently. We know we've had a problem with staff time. Are they not in process because staff just didn't have a chance to get to it and it's a great project and it should be done, which is probably 90%, 70%, something like that. We won't know until we do that due diligence. But in order to do that due diligence, it's going to take us time. And we I've said to the mayor and to the vice mayor and to Hans, we cannot do this if we don't do it the NCIP way or the NIP way, with the public, with public testimony, with the way we've usurped what we've. That pool as being one that is amount of work that we need to do, that they have enough time for us to do that if that was what we need to do, but then our recommendation would have to be, we'll get back to you later. Or the other alternative thought that I have is we do that project review, but whatever we give away of the 26-27 NCIP portion of the TOT, so next year's voting cycle, whatever we can find in those projects that amount we keep from the 26-27 cycle. So let's say for botanics, the city has asked us for 3 to 4 million. We take and appropriate 3 million of the 26-27 cycle to address their shortfall. I have been a proponent of saying that we should ask the city to utilize their use their reserve funds in some sort of matching to what we do. I mean, it would seem like we all ought to be in this together. Last year, according to the things that the finance manager put up, not last year, it's this year, 25-26, they used 3.6 million, over 3.6 million of reserves to balance the 25-26 budget. So it's not the first time they've used reserves to help fund a shortfall. They're doing it in the current year. In their budget, they have 6.2 million that they're going to be adding to reserves 26-27. So cut back on what you're adding to reserves, take 3 million from us, match it, and some other things, you got 10 million. You're there. So it helps the city get to where they need to go. And I think the best way to do it is, as Jamie brought up, if we give them some of this year's, what's going to say that they're not going to take some of next year's? They have that choice. They could do it by a 4/5 vote. Is the budget shortfall a emergency crisis? Hans has said a million times that it's not a revenue problem, it's a spending problem. That's fundamentally what needs to be worked on, is the spending problem. Or we have to figure out other ways of getting revenues, but taxing, I'm not sure is going to happen. So they're going to have to get to the funding side. But those things are beyond me. So that help you with the three?
Well, it helped me. I kind of am skeptical, but that's okay. I understand what you're saying. So we're not wanting to hear my skepticism right now. That's for other people. It's coming. Okay.
Just so I'm clear, the third tranche you talked about is 26-27, which is the year following this. So that's a whole year after this.
Yes.
Pool of money. Would that alleviate the immediate $10 million shortfall that council is looking for? Would they be satisfied with that?
It matches the period that they have the problem with.
Yeah.
They've already done internal things to make 25-26 work.
Yeah.
Which we saw last night. It was 3.645 million of reserves were brought in to fund the budget. So
Sorry, Committee Member Duke, we're getting comments online that we can't hear you. And again, recommend to all speakers on the microphones, please speak very clearly and loudly into the mics. Unfortunately, we do need to have people online to be able to hear you. Thank you.
Do I need to rerun the whole thing? Oh, it's that mic. Okay. Thought these didn't make any difference so far.
No, that's The round ones are for online.
Yep.
This is online.
Okay,
This is in the room.
so now I can do this.
You get your own microphone next time.
Yeah. That's gonna be forever.
I'm sorry, in that confusion, I lost track of what we were just talking about.
Yeah, I believe we're talking about having this fiscal year be balanced and in matching the next cycle with the fiscal that we're looking to pass the budget in June. That is a balanced budget. That's,
Yep.
I believe where you stop.
So to me, the timing is more correct for what the city's problem is. Because they've taken care of this year's problem, quite frankly, from reserves and other actions, keeping some positions held and so on. And council is, the request was to do more search from staff on what else they can do to reduce costs. And I think there's just starting to get into the spending side of the question. And I think they will get there, I hope. Because if it's a structural problem today, it'll be a structural problem for the next 20 years. So it needs to be addressed.
So if I may, so they also said yesterday that they're relying terribly on our about $4 million. That's in there. That was the only stripe that had like a solid color, right? So they're expecting $4 million from us. That was the presentation. No, it was.
The big request was 3 to 4 million.
Yes.
2 of the council was hoping for a higher number. 2 of the council were not wanting that higher number. And 1 was in the middle and said, I'll live with 3 or 4. That's how we got there. So if we came in lower, we might get it remanded back to us. No, we need more. If we came in too high, they'd probably just take it.
Okay, so in addition to the 3 or 4 and what their inner workings are, I'm not privy to. It was a little bar of $4 million blue with a whole bunch of other empty bars. They also, near the end of the meeting, which was quite interesting, said, well, it looks like we're going to need the money from 26, 27. Anyway, so let's just put that in the bin right now. And the conversation, it seemed that the main contest to that contestation, whatever the word is to that, was from our District 3 person who said, hey, we need to work on budget reductions first. So in your plan, we're then, the picture was, it may not be what you mean, was that all would become part of city's budget. That was what I heard in the meeting, and I could have heard it wrong.
As I said, if you think we're confused, you think they are as well. I said, if you think we're confused, they are as well.
Did you hear that?
Heard that, but I specifically asked the question. You're not really asking for 4 + 6 and 10. So that would mean we solve the whole problem. No, we're not. We want you to come up with a way to, we're confusing the tranches. So
when did you ask that? I stayed till 2 minutes before it was over. Was that a side conversation or was that in the discussion?
Side conversation.
Okay.
A couple of different side conversations, actually. They've asked us for a challenge to come up with a number. As I said, we might not meet the number that they need, and we might be asked again, which is fine. We just have to be ready with our thoughts on how we would fund an additional amount. What I like about the proposal that I'm making is we have an ordinary cycle for this year where we've asked people to give us projects to look at. We would have a truncated amount of money in the next year, but the NCIP process itself could go on. Because I don't think we'd give the whole thing, we'd give something around the ask. And it has the potential of, if we find projects that go back to ending balance because they're not, we will have more money to deal with in 26, 27 to be able to do those projects that might come in that project year. So that's my thought.
So we're not going to solve the city's budget problem tonight.
It's important to know what their problems are accurately, to know what we are being asked to do.
I agree. So I do want to just kind of, are there any other discussions? I do want to kind of summarize and move on if we can. So there have been a number of different ideas kind of proposed, both from the public and the committee. First idea would be to proceed with with what we were tasked to do and prioritizing the projects to be frozen. And we would base this on safety, public health, and infrastructure needs. And we would at some point need to decide that specific process. Another option would be to not go through that process and instead recommend that the city council consider taking funds from the 26-27 cycle. And then the third idea that came up was looking into whether a loan can be made to the general fund and specifically identifying the undergrounding funds. So those were kind of the ideas that were brought up by various people. I think what we can do is maybe vote to have it on the agenda for the next meeting where we can actually have a vote in terms of which one of those options we would like to recommend to the city. So I would make a motion to agendize the choices on the agenda for the next meeting for us to come up with a vote in terms of next steps.
I do have a quick question. On your motion, would we be limited to the options you just laid out, or because what if we do a combination of some of the options? Take some money from here, if you have like 3 pots, right? I think is what Dennis was saying. You take a little bit from each pot.
We can agendize a discussion so that you can have that discussion, and then it'll be in the agenda report, laid out the options so that it's clear and transparent to everybody and people can attend.
And then could there be kind of like an open option in case we go home and all of a sudden we have this wonderful idea that solves everything?
I think if we can, if you can maybe contact us, we can add it to the agenda report. I would rather things be in the agenda report so that everybody has a chance to read it and they can comment.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe Christy has something to.
If I could just make one comment, and that's with regard to the loan option. I do think that's getting more into how should the city council fix its budget problems and whether it wants to do a loan or not. I think that's sort of outside the purview of the discussion of this committee. So I would recommend against having that a part of the agenda discussion. And then I would just really emphasize that the council has the power, if there is a 4/5 vote, to take the funds, and that could be all of the funds. And what I believe, really get your input on what will have the least impact to your neighborhoods, to pause certain projects over others. Otherwise, it will be entirely in their hands to make that decision. And they could just make that unilaterally. They could, because they ultimately approve or disapprove projects. And so I just want to have that caveat, if the committee were to, and this is food for thought for the next meeting, if the committee were to say, we only want it to come from the future funds, there's a risk with that, where they might say, well, that's not what we directed, that's not what we asked you to do. And so now, in the interest of time, we're just going to take the money. I'm just letting you all have that forewarning. So I would recommend going through that due diligence and coming up with a list. And if you have alternatives and preferences, I think you can certainly voice that opinion. And I'm sure they'll consider it and take it all very seriously, because I know it's tough for you guys and it's tough for them. And then the last thing I'll say with regard to taking the funds for ordinary and necessary expenditures, I will just point out that in the COVID years in 2020, we took, I believe we took all of the funds or most of the funds. And at that time, the deficit ended up being much worse. But at the time that the money was taken, it was estimated to be a staff now is that it's a $10 million deficit to fill. So as bad as, and obviously the COVID situation ended up being much worse than the 2 million. But I'm just trying to give a frame of reference on the fiscal situation that the city finds itself in. And I really don't think the council would have directed this had there not been serious concerns on how to fix the budget. So everyone's respectful of your work, and I know that this is incredibly difficult. So I just wanted to add those few insights. Thanks.
Yeah. And just piggybacking on that, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with looking at the projects. And if there are certain projects that are identified that can't be done, and we certainly can have those discussions. But I think everyone understands that it really is just a recommendation that we can make. We can't make the decision. It's up to the city council.
Yeah. Can I ask a quick question? What was your answer to the question of, what if we have an amazing flash of brilliance during the week? How does it get, I mean, if we make a very limited proposal for what we're going to cover on, and how does that?
Contact Reggie and then we'll try to put it in the agenda. So we want to make sure is that one, there's not a violation of the Brown Act where different members of the committee are talking about different options from the meeting. And so if you do have any other options, we're happy to put it in the agenda.
All right, thank you.
And usually we do meet. So the chair and vice chair, Reggie, myself and Parker, we do meet to talk about the agenda ahead of time before the NCIP meeting.
So we do roll call vote.
Thank you. So roll call for the motion that was made by Chair and then seconded by Skyline. Okay, so moving on with roll call, Alta Mesa.
Aye.
Thank you. Casanova Oaknall.
Aye.
Del Monte Beach.
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande.
Aye.
Downtown.
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye. Excuse
Thank you. Glenwood.
Aye.
Monterey Vista.
Aye.
New Monterey.
Aye.
Oak Grove.
Aye.
Thank you. Old Town.
Aye.
Skyline.
Yes, please.
And Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
So we can move on to member comments.
One call, one question. Are we going to have that on the agenda for the November 5th meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Do you think that's going to get in the way of first project nominations? Like, time are we going to spend on that one? Shouldn't take that much time. Okay. I got a whisper in the ear that it's easy.
Not easy, but all very capable adults.
You're sure?
So yes, committee member comments, if you want to go, Joe.
I would like to know if there's a way that time could be limited in each of these meetings. I'm working full time and family obligations, and it's, you know, we're having a lot of extra meetings here, and that's fine, but that would be, I think, helpful to some of us.
Any other, I don't know if there's an answer to that or not.
Well, I said my preference earlier. I agree with Jill, the representative from Villa Del Monte. I mean, we can talk about it as Andrea put together. I mean, I think, I don't know, my opinion, 3 hours is sufficient and you probably burn out after that. I mean, we started this meeting at 6. It's 8:10 right now, and I think everybody's done. So, I mean, 9 o'clock is a lot, I would say. So if we set 3 hours for a meeting, I would rather have more meetings than meetings go to 1 a.m. I was never here for those.
Many years ago, but we did it.
I was never here for that. So,
Once, unless you're voting are not productive.
yeah, I mean, so that would be my opinion and preference, but
Are we planning to do?
Pizza was good, right?
Yeah,
It was good.
I'm doing both the discussion around the budget issues and the first round of fiscal year 25-26 project.
right, that was, I mean, that was the discussion. I mean, we can look at the agenda. We could break it up. We traditionally break it up into 2 groups. We could break it up into 3. I mean, there's ways to do it. We can look into it. But I mean, I agree. I don't know. I mean, it's not, but it's also not up to me. So.
Maybe that's something we should put on the agenda too.
Not have to
Make a motion on that.
Who's having the longest meetings? It's no prize.
Did you have a comment?
Committee member comments? Yes. Our neighborhood's finally got an alternate who's excited and wants to participate. And it's been a long time since we had that. It'd be really nice to get our alternates seated before the voting process starts so they can collaborate in the process. Just want to throw that out.
I don't think they even got interviewed.
We'll work it on it.
All right, any other comments?
Just Reggie, can you send me the Excel file of this presentation? Please.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Going once, going twice. Okay,
Time out.
great, so we can,
Sorry. I just have for the next meeting, the discussion on the pot of money. Are we then, I just want to make it completely clear, we're not voting then on any individual projects to freeze. Okay. This way, staff would have to prepare the conflict of interest maps and all of this, and then talk to the project proponents. So I just want to make sure that we're on the page. Thank you.
Great, so I will go ahead and close committee comment. Our next meeting is November 5th, and I think we can adjourn the meeting at 8:11. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The line.